The housing market is slowing, but does that mean you should expect a housing crash as we move into 2022? Or does it mean that you should expect more reasonable appreciation, a more reasonable housing market as we start that transition into the spring? Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen the housing market slow in a lot of housing markets across the United States, where homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer. Buyers are having an opportunity to actually see the homes and think about it before making a decision to write an offer, because just a couple of months ago, you had to make a decision more or less on the spot in order to even be considered for that property. And a lot of housing markets across the US have started to slow, which means less appreciation, giving buyers an opportunity to breathe and kind of think through the process, which is typical for a normal housing market. Over the last 18 months or so, we've seen anything but a normal housing market. But as we've seen the market slow, we've seen appreciation slow, but in no way does that mean that prices are going to stagnate or even fall over the next couple of months. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to talk about what you should expect as we move through the end of the year, as we move into spring, if you're a buyer or if you're a seller in today's housing market. There's a lot of people out there that still believe a housing crash is on the way, but the data isn't supporting it. While homes are sitting on the market a little bit longer, you're seeing month over month appreciation decline. What does that mean, right? How do you read between the lines when you're seeing this data? Because most people out there just read the headlines and then go with that narrative without actually reading the details of what's happening in the market. And as someone that's been keeping you up to date on the housing market through the pandemic, helping you make reasonable, sensible decisions through the process, that is the goal here, is to do that in more detail so that you know what you're getting into if you're considering buying a house. My name is Jeb Smith. I'm a real estate broker here in Southern California. My channel is all about real estate, helping guide you through that process, helping you make sense of what's actually happening in the housing market with the housing crash headlines, the foreclosure headlines, all of that crazy stuff, so that you can make informed decisions as a buyer, as a seller, as you move forward with your plan. So do me a favor, if you find any value in this content at all, hit that thumbs up, share it with a friend, and feel free to subscribe if you want to stay updated on everything real estate related. Now, in every one of these videos, I like to remind you that all real estate is local. What I'm seeing in my housing market might not be happening in your housing market, and vice versa, right? What's happening in yours might not be happening in mine. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, what I've seen here locally in my housing market is a little bit different than what I'm actually going to talk about in this video. My housing market here in Southern California is still moving full steam ahead. We have inventory continuing to decline more or less across the board. Every single offer I've written for a buyer has been a multiple offer situation. I've written offers on property that had 37 offers, one that had 50 offers. I mean, the craziness is still out there. And every listing I've had has had multiple offers. And in fact, over the weekend, I relisted a property that fell out of escrow because the buyer couldn't perform. And we had 10 offers on that property. And so the craziness is still there. But where you are, it might be a little bit different, right? I'm hearing a lot of markets out there, a lot of people coming to me saying, my market is slowing a little bit, right? I'm seeing homes sit on the market a little bit longer. I'm able to, kind of get my thoughts together and make a strategic offer versus just flying by the seat of my pants and making offers without really thinking about it, which is a positive thing, right? And we're not seeing the appreciation month over month like we were a couple of months ago when it was 18, 20% month over month. You're likely to see appreciation numbers decline month over month over the next couple of months. And you have to understand why. You have to understand that last year, this time, we were seeing gangbuster numbers across the board in a lot of metropolitan cities out there. So this year, if the numbers don't perform quite as well, even though they're higher this year than typical markets, falling into that fall-winter market, they're likely to be less than where we were last year. So you're not likely to see the appreciation numbers. You're likely to see month-over-month declines in pending home sales and existing home sales, but that's typical for this time of year. So don't take those numbers and think that just because the market is slowed a little bit, that you're going to see a huge change in the market. Now, the market is slowing, but like I said at the beginning of the video, don't plan just because the market's slowing that you're going to see prices move down, right? I don't think you're going to see prices move down in most markets out there. Majority of markets out there that have been moving because homeowners are wanting to buy property there. The demand is high, the supply is low. For example, the Phoenix market, right? They're up to 1 month of inventory in that market, but that's still well below, historic levels of a balanced market. So you're likely to see less appreciation, but you're likely to see homes still sell at or close to the asking price, usually with multiple offers in that case. I also talked to a friend who sells a lot of real estate up in the Seattle area, and she was essentially telling me the same thing. Homes are selling very, very quickly, in most cases well above the asking price. There is a little bit more inventory on the market, but it's getting met with buyer demand. And so, they're not really gaining any steam in those markets. But yet, if you look at the headlines across the nation, it's that the housing market is slowing. And it's because they're using year-over-year comparisons in most of their data. They're comparing where we are this year to where we were last year. Last year was an anomaly in the housing market as we had one of the strongest fall-winter markets that we've seen on record. And this year, while it's still a very strong season, if you will, with regards to housing, it might not be quite as good as last year, and therefore you're likely to see some decline in those numbers, and a lot of people out there are going to say that there's going to be a housing crash. Because of that, you're going to see housing prices decline, and I actually think that's wrong. I think we're going to see one of the strongest spring markets that we've seen in a very long time. I think you still have a lot of buyer demand out there. You're going to have inventory pick up after the first of the year as we move into that time of year. How do I know this? Because I have several clients that I've talked to that are considering selling their homes, but they want to wait till the spring market. Typically for me, this time of year is a slower time of the year. Typically, I'm not getting sellers reaching out to me already talking about selling their homes in the spring. They're usually taking this time of the year off to enjoy friends, family, holidays, all that stuff. But I already have people reaching out to me talking about the spring market. So I think you're going to see a lot of inventory come on the market during that time. The question is it going to be met with buyer demand? I think if interest rates stay low, which the trend seems to be that way at the moment, right? We saw interest rates go up. The Fed came out and said that they were going to start tapering bond purchases, mortgage-backed securities, and rates started to trickle back down. Now, towards the end of last week, we saw rates go back up, but we're not really seeing them fluctuate towards that 4% number, which is what a lot of people expected to happen by the end of the year, right? We're about 6 weeks from the end of the year. Chances are you're going to see inventory slow a little bit as we transition to that time. You're likely to see buyers out there still looking for the right home, right? Those buyers that have been looking aren't going to stop right now. They're likely to continue looking. So if the right home pops on the market, they're going to be making offers. I can tell you from experience in working with buyers at the moment, I have buyers that are anxious to buy a property. They want to buy a property. Some believe that housing prices are going to continue to rise. Some believe interest rates are going to continue to rise. Some people just want to get into a home because they're ending their lease. They don't want to have to re-sign. So there's a lot of different reasons that people purchase property. But what I'm trying to make clear here is that the market is still moving. It isn't slowing across the board. Now, some markets might be slowing. Some markets you might be seeing, a decline in home prices. And a lot of people are reaching out, well, how is the whole Zillow thing going to affect the housing market? I don't personally think the Zillow thing is going to affect the housing market at all. I think the majority of homes that they end up selling, the 7,000 or so that they were going to put on the market, are going to be sold to institutional investors. Those institutional investors are likely to hold those properties and rent them out. There was a story last week of Zillow selling 2,000 of them to an institutional investor who planned on renting those properties out. And I think that's going to be what happens across the board, because if inflation is real, you're likely to see rents continue to rise over the next couple of years, and people want a fixed income, right? They don't want to have to worry about the volatility in the market, that the stock market potentially crashing or what have you. They want to put their money in a fixed asset. Real estate's a fixed asset. It brings a fixed return every month. And so a lot of these companies are putting their money in real estate, and therefore those properties are likely to get purchased by an institutional investor. But there are some markets where they were heavily concentrated. For example, Phoenix, that was one of the markets that they bought a lot of property. If they were to put all of those properties on the market at one time, which I don't think is going to happen, let's say they didn't sell it to an institutional investor and they just decided to put them on the market and see what would happen. Well, in that case, you'd have a lot of properties come to the market at one time. But as we mentioned earlier, that Phoenix market sitting at about 1 month of inventory. more inventory in that market's probably welcomed by buyers in that market, by agents in that market. It would be a good thing, but I believe it would be met with buyer demand. And I also don't believe that's actually going to happen. I believe a lot of that property, as I mentioned, is going to go to institutional investors, which means it's not going to hit the housing market. So what I'm actually saying here, as the market is slowing a bit, it's not slowing in the way that a lot of people want it to slow, right? There's a lot of hopes out there that the market's going to slow to a point that prices start to decline, and buyers that have been sitting on the sidelines are going to be able to go in and purchase property at a discount. That's not what I'm saying when I say the market is slowing. What I'm saying is you're seeing less appreciation, right? Which is a good thing. Having 18% appreciation year over year is not a good thing. Having a normal appreciation, maybe 4, 5, 6% year over year, is actually a positive thing. And as millennials continue to become prime buying age, boomers are sitting on property, not selling it, inventory is going to continue to be an issue. And until you have more supply, you're not going to have a change in the housing market. So you're going to have a less appreciation, but you're not likely to see any real decline in home prices. So if you're a buyer sitting on the sidelines waiting for that, you're going to be waiting for a while, in my opinion, in most markets out there. Maybe some markets, you're going to see a decline. In Southern California, my market, you're not going to see that decline. You're going to see more sideways movement, if anything at all, right? Less appreciation month over month. Less appreciation this time next year, but home prices at a higher level than they currently are. So if you're a buyer, again, sitting on the sidelines wondering what you should do, you need to go through that pre-approval process. You need to, make sure you're ready so that when the right property does present itself, you're in a position to move forward. Even if you need a little bit of time to think about it, you don't want to have to deal with the pre-approval after the fact, right? In fact, this week, I had a buyer come to me, want to make an offer on a property, one of my listings that they want to buy, but they haven't even been pre-approved. And this is a property that just received 10 offers on it. I would love to have helped them, but they were behind the 8 ball and there wasn't enough time to allow them to go through the process, get all the docs approved, all of that stuff in order to make the offer. So had they been approved, they would have been in a position to do that. So if you're a buyer, keep that in mind. If you're a seller, what should you think about? Well, if you're planning on selling, what is your plan? What are you going to do once you sell that property? Where are you going to go? Do you have something set up? Are you planning on renting, planning on buying something in another state? These are all things you need to consider before putting your home on the market, right? What is your reason for selling? What is your reason for waiting if you plan to do it in the spring? All of these things need to be considered when going through that process. Now, after watching this, if you're still sitting on the sidelines wondering if you should buy now, should you wait, I actually go into it in a little bit more detail in this video here. Check that out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But for now, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I appreciate all the support. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.